Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Cassandra Gucwa, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story. And our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then let's talk about what you're doing with your digital company and then anything that you're working on for tomorrow, okay?
Well, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for this. This is so cool. So tell us about where you were born.
So I was born in Riverside, California. After I turned about a year old, then I moved to Temecula, and that's essentially where I think I grew up, at least until the age of 10. But I don't know if you're familiar with Temecula. Now it's really well known, and there's a mall there. There's so many stores and a big population. But when I lived there, it was very small. There was probably one Target, and all the kids wore the same clothes. Oh, wow. So it's a much smaller town than I'm used to. There was no mall back then. And I grew up in a very supportive family. My parents and my sister, we were all supportive of one another, which impacted me still to this day. But so my father, he is an entrepreneur and he had his own business. He invented a syringe. So it was one of the only curved syringes at the time, and no one else had it. So he was able to build a company. He named it Martel Medical, and he ended up selling it when I think I was around the age of 9 or 10, and then we ended up moving to Poway area, and then I moved other places like San Marcos, Escondido, just all around. But him being an entrepreneur really impacted me and still does to this day. I remember watching infomercials with him. He would always say things like, oh, I could have invented that. Or if I was the inventor of this, I would do it this way. And this is how I would build the business. So for me, I was always thinking in that way. I was always thinking, how can I turn this into a business model? Or how can I go out and start selling it? So I think the first business idea I had, I was about 5 years old. And I wanted to sell my paintings. And I remember taking it to my mom saying, here's the design of how I want to lay out the artwork. And this is how I want to get people to come and buy the artwork. And she, obviously no one's going to buy it when you're a 5-year-old. So instead of saying, no, it's not going to work, she said, oh, honey, I want to keep your artwork. So we didn't end up doing that. But my next business, I think I want to say at high school, I started sewing clothing and friends started asking for clothes and I started doing that. And then I started selling to boutiques and those boutiques were in the LA area. And so they asked, do you do dog clothes? So I started to create dog clothes and they asked for pet beds. And then I started to create pet beds and that kind of took off. But I was the age of 21. So at the age of 21, you're 20 or 21, I want to say. You're in college trying to figure out what to focus on. I also had, jobs to help pay for college. And at that time, I had no idea what I was doing. I still accomplished a lot with a side business, but ended up eventually selling that and focus more on my studies and what I wanted to eventually do and get more experience in the business world. So I focused more of my time on web design, and I was really interested in marketing. But back then, there was no option for a digital marketing class. There was no option to get into the digital world. It was marketing. That was the only class you could choose. So the only way to get exposed to the digital world is to get a job within the business world, in the marketing world. And that's when I started to get exposed to anything and everything to do with a website. So paid media, SEO, search engine optimization, a little bit of web design. So I could do the web design aspect and get exposed to marketing. And when I had my job, I had so many questions around search engine optimization, and no one seemed to know the answer. So it was, to me, it was a mystery. So I always wanted to figure out what the right answer was. I could try to research it online, but nobody really knew how to do it. My boss would even hire people that were experts in the field, and I would ask them questions. Here's the issue we have. Here's what I read online. Can you help us? I don't really know what to do. And they still didn't know the right answers. So when I was spending all my time on SEO, I decided to pivot and solely focus on that field, search engine optimization, which is now what we do as a company. But from there, I worked at an agency that was working on enterprise level clients. So I got experience with Levi's, Panasonic, Under Armour. I ran those SEO programs. But as an entrepreneur, I always wanted to help other people on the side. So I'd always have a side gig, which was non-compete with the agency. So obviously legal and everything like that. But I started to offer services to small to mid-sized companies and discuss, a little bit above and beyond SEO, but really help them with their SEO program. And when that grew to a point where I could not handle a side gig and a full-time job, I had to pick. And after looking at the numbers and the revenue, it made absolute sense to go and dedicate full-time to the side gig, which ended up growing into a business it is today. We now have 30 people on the team and really just love what we do as a company. And it's really fantastic where I ended up today.
That's cool. That's cool. So I know you're going to find this hard to imagine, but I have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
So what was your favorite thing about growing up in basically Southern California? Because you were in Temecula, right? And then Poway and Escondido, San Marcos, that kind of thing. What was your favorite thing about growing up there?
I want to say, when I lived in Temecula, we lived on the street. It was called like Buckeye Road. And my parents ended up making friends with all the neighbors. So luckily, those neighbors had the same age kids. And I'm still friends with them today. But we were known as the Buckeye Road girls because there was like 3 or 4 families where we would always hang out. We would walk together. We'd walk up the street to go to the pool because it's always hot in Temecula. We would, any event that would happen, like someone's birthday, we would hang out. And still to this day, if someone's having a wedding or graduating, we still see each other. We still get together. So I want to say that's probably my favorite side, is being on a small street and knowing all the parents and the kids. Really fun time.
That's cool. So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Yes, it was art, which is funny. But what's interesting about art is I could apply it to what I'm doing now in the digital world. But what I really liked is art with a combination of the technical side. So the technical side, so the first website I created, I think I was in high school, but it was a technical way to be artistic, to develop your own website and write it in HTML code, and literally wrote the entire HTML code because there was no templates or WordPress back then. So to me, it was so interesting to know code and then also create the code in a way that is visualized as artwork,
Right.
which was so interesting to me.
Well, it's creative, right?
It is. It's very creative.
It's a blank canvas.
It is.
And then
really
now
is.
you're putting your artistic take on whatever whatever the company is, whatever sort of message you're trying to deliver, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this already. I think you already answered it because it sounds like you've listened to my podcast before. But I always ask everybody, and I'm going to ask you if it's okay, who was the most influential person to you growing up?
Okay. Can I give you more than just one?
Of course you can.
Okay.
There's no wrong answer, by the way. It's
Good.
it's whoever was the most influential to you. And it could be a village, right? It could be, a number of people.
Yeah. Okay, so there's obviously my father was influential in my childhood, and then there was other people in the workplace that I'll get to, but definitely my father, because he helped me think as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He also helped me like start businesses because as you're starting businesses, obviously you need to figure out how to incorporate yourself and make sure you have a business license and do your taxes, which was difficult to understand initially. So he helped in that area. He also helps me think out of the box and think differently, which really stood out when I had a salary job. The way I would think was above and beyond what I was supposed to be thinking. So when you are it depends on what kind of companies you work for, but if you work for a bigger company, you have a specific job title, you're supposed to be doing what's in that box. But I always had other ideas about how to help the company in multiple different ways. So that was a big influential part of me.
So you're always thinking outside of that box that they wanted you to stay in.
Right. Yeah. I always thought above and beyond. And then he also thought in a way of how to make it work. So my father is now he's a contractor. He works, I think, where you are. So I don't know if you guys met, but you might have crossed paths at some point.
What's your dad's name?
Michael Martell.
Oh, I think I do know him.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've met him.
That would be a small world.
It's tiny. It's a tiny world.
Yeah, but he works with realtors, so.
Yeah, I'm almost sure I've met him.
How funny.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we can talk about that more.
I love the way he thinks, right? And I love the fact that the way he thinks and what he shared with you had a major impact on you. Because there's a lot of wisdom in thinking how to make things work. Right. That's seriously lacking in the contracting world. I can tell you that, right. From experience. Right. That's awesome. Wow. I love it.
So it's not just about, I wouldn't just think outside the box. I'd also think, okay, here's how we would get there. Yeah. This is the exact steps that you would need to do in order to get there. So that was a differentiator I noticed in myself when working with other people at
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's logic, right? But it's also common sense. And that's where I think your secret sauce is, so to speak, right? That your dad brought, which is this is how you make it work. This, because all the ethereal stuff in the world is great. Concepts are great, but how do you apply them? Right? How do you actually make them go out and solve problems? And that's ultimately what entrepreneurship is about. Entrepreneurship is about going out and figuring out, of course life is, but but specifically, right, going out and figuring out a way to solve whatever the problem is. So that's invaluable. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still try to figure out what's the next step and how to get there. As scaling a business, there's so many new avenues that you need to understand too. But
that's true.
Another influential person or should I say two people. I was working at an agency, and I remember my confidence level being very, very low. And that was due to the fact that I was working with people who were just really, really knowledgeable around me. I didn't know the SEO space as well as them. And I ended up having to mentor these two women. Their names are Nikki Lamb and Lisa Flannery. I think they're both like VPs of marketing. I know Nikki Lamb is like head of SEO and content at NP Digital, which is one of our competitors. But they really instilled confidence in me, because as I was mentoring them, they actually ended up mentoring me and building up my confidence so that I can understand my value more to the world. They would be sending me, TED Talks and women empowerment. So as I started to gain more confidence in the business world, I would have be more calm when speaking at conferences. I would have the ability to speak up, in large meetings when I knew the answer. I would be more confident in recommendations and really hone in on exactly how to get something implemented on a client's website. So that confidence that they instilled in me really impacted me. And to this day, it helped me understand my value and understand how much I should be valued and how much I'm worth, so that I can bill certain people a particular hourly rate that was appropriate for the industry. And I still think that our hourly rate is lower compared to our competitors, at least, but it helped us to build a business when you actually do put a correct hourly rate that you're worth. So that really helped. Another person, the last person that had an influential part of my life, his name was Nick Rashawn, and he also works at NP Digital now. But I essentially, when my side business was taking off and I had to make the decision to leap into my side gig and solely focus on my side gig, I was very, very nervous. And the main reason that made me nervous was not only the fact that I'm giving up, a salary job that's reoccurring, but also I had a kid. So I had to consider, any type of benefits that I would be giving up. So that's something that I had to think about as a family. How does this impact my family now?
Right.
So what I did is I created a one-page business plan that had that if I were to spend full time, these are the steps I would do, and this is what I would focus on. I also put together financials of where we're at now and where our next goals are and how we get to those next goals. So it was very basic, but just outlining those bullet points, and not even spending a lot of time, writing an entire business plan. Just doing a one-page business plan made a huge difference, because you can really outline exactly where you want to get and how to get there. So I presented that to Nick Rashawn, who was my friend at the time, and he was also like VP of sales at one of our competitors. And he essentially looked at that information, looked at that data, and said, if you go back to your salary job, your full-time salary job, you're making a crazy mistake, because what you have here is more than enough to make that leap. And imagine what you can do if you spend your full time focusing on your side gig. Imagine what you can do. So he really made an impact in my life and helped me make that leap. So yeah.
That's cool. See, it's a village, right?
It is a village. Multiple
awesome.
People have an impact.
That's awesome. So you decide to go self-employed. You decide to take the leap and you decide to do this. Talk to us a little bit. I mean, obviously, counseling from Nick helped, right? But talk to us a little bit about what sort of made you make that step, because it's one thing for people to say, hey, you should do this. Another thing for them to say, hey, you'd be crazy if you didn't, right? But it's another thing for you to take that step, to actually take that leap. And I know for a fact that there are people that are listening to this that are going to be inspired and motivated by your story. What was it that was sort of the final thing that just made you do this?
So I have to be honest in my story.
Yes.
So I have to start by going back.
Go ahead.
When I had my full-time job and my side gig.
Mm-hmm.
I was making a similar amount on my side gig as my full-time job, and I could have made the leap there, but I got pregnant.
Oh.
So I said, no way am I making a leap before I get pregnant, because first of all, you never know what's going to happen after pregnancy. Because you could be like, it could impact your disability. You could have like more issues. I mean, even worse things have happened to other people. I don't know if my pregnancy will be healthy and my baby would be healthy. You just have no idea.
True.
So I kept it going while pregnant. Always thinking I'll probably go back to the safe salary job. I'll probably go back. Then I end up going on maternity leave at my salary job. I was going to take time off of my side gig, but I didn't. So I ended up sending an email in the hospital the day after I gave birth. Ended up sending an email to a client saying, I have to push this meeting out a week, but didn't tell them why. Mainly because I gave birth.
Right.
But
we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.